Very good evening. Welcome to another episode of Wellness Changemakers Leadership Edition. I'm your host Suyash, and we hope that you're all doing well. And in the past 1 week, things haven't been any. Your things have been well for you since our last session. Uh, Today, for the what is the seventh episode of this series. We're joined by Ms. Manisha Agarwal. Manisha is the director and head of people and organization and strategic initiatives for PUMA Group India. She's before that she founded her own HR consultancy firm. Has been in the professional side of things for 14 years and was even a jury member of People Matters Talent Acquisition Awards, which are one of the major, very prestigious HR-related awards in the country. Risha, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Suyash, for this warm welcome. Again, I hope that everybody, all of you, are well. This is, of course, tough times for the country and for all our families. I hope everybody's keeping safe. Yes, coming back to Suyash, very happy to be part of this forum. When you reached out to me, and with the topic that you reached out to me, I thought it was something that was very close to my heart and also very close to what I do. So very happy to be part of this conversation with you today.
Thank you so much. And please tell us, how has this past 1 year treated you? Have things been well, both at a personal level and a professional level?
Yes, Suyash, as we know, I think last year has been tough for all of us, for businesses, for organizations, for brands, professionally and personally. Personally, yes, I think I'm well. My family is well. Thanks for asking. Professionally, when last year the pandemic hit, of course, we were taken by a surprise. Till March, we were all, in fact, all businesses, all retail industry was gung ho about how the year is going to be. Puma as a brand has been growing year on year, and we had this lofty target in mind, and all we were going ahead with was this target in mind. And then suddenly, the pandemic hit, and we were hit with the lockdown. Um, However, I would say from last year to this year, there has been a huge amount of learning that we as a brand have gone through. Last year, when the pandemic hit us, I think our prime objective was that how do we make sure that people are not anxious and stressed about their jobs, right? Because that was the first thing that came to their mind. And last year, I mean, fortunately, the pandemic was not as deadly as this year, and the worry in people's minds mostly was, okay, the businesses are not doing well, the shops are shut, there is no money coming in. What's going to happen to my job, and what is the organization going to do to my job? Am I going to be laid off, right? So this was sort of the main thing that everybody was thinking and going through. So obviously, we as a brand communicated really well with our employees, made sure that their anxiety is taken care of, made sure that the brand stands by them and tells them that they don't have to worry about their jobs. What they have to worry about is their well-being and their anxiety. And once the businesses are back, we will make sure that we go again for those lofty targets. Sure enough, I think it took us about 3 months. By the time Q2 ended, we saw the business resurgence. We went and we grabbed all possible opportunities to do our business and numbers. We ended the year pretty well, much better than what we had actually expected and anticipated. So that was fine. Again, January started with this big hope of that yes, it's going to be a new year and it's going to be a new target, and let's keep that target in mind. But again, sure enough, March comes and the reality hits you that everything is not back to normal. However, this year what was different was the pandemic was much more deadly. We realized that it's not just about keeping your job safe. Actually, the biggest worry in everybody's mind was about their life and about their family's well-being and about people around them, right? So that was something that was the biggest worry in people's mind. And last 1.5 months, in fact, what we have grappled with as an organization is to ensure that well-being of employees is kept in mind. I know that I think 30-40% of our employees at some point or the other were personally facing challenges in terms of health of either themselves or their loved ones. So we as a brand had to make sure that we support these employees in as best a way as possible. Make sure that this is not the time to really think about, okay, your businesses are down or your shops are not working, but this was the time to sort of come together as a team and support these employees. And we know that when the business comes back, we will be back in action and we will again go for those targets. But yes, right now is the time to come together as a family and support each other. So that's what the sentiment has been last 1 year. And yeah, a lot of learnings from this year, and I'm sure I'll touch upon some of those learnings as we progress in this conversation.
Absolutely. One of the reasons that we actually reached out to you was your recent article in People Matters, where you talked about, of course, you were talking about how Puma has dealt with the situation in terms of the employee experience. But I think what stood out was that you, as someone who leads that whole people side of things, how you yourself were talking about and using terms like empathy and employee experience, which are not normally heard of, right? They're not a major part of the mainstream conversations. So in that, you had mentioned that you had that the COVID has broken down many of our assumptions from an employee experience point of view. What were some of these assumptions?
Sure. So, Suyash, I think at the cost of sounding repetitive, I'm sure this is a question that many leaders before me have also answered, and I think all of us leaders across various industries and various functions had certain notions in our minds in terms of how work is done, how people are engaged, how businesses are run. And I think a lot of them were broken. I would say, I think the biggest one, which I'm sure you would have heard from many other people as well, was how well we can work in a virtual world, right? Um, I don't think before this era, while a lot of us could work from home, but I don't think we ever imagined that it could be as effective and as productive as we have proved it to be in the last 1 year. So I think that was probably one of the biggest myths that got broken, and I'm sure it's not just me saying it, but many of us have realized that. I think the other assumption probably was that when you have to engage with employees, it has to be a one-on-one connect. It has to be personal. You have to be physically present in the space. Again, I think it is broken that myth. I think there is the way we were able to virtually engage with employees in the last 1 year told us that probably it might even be better. And why better? Because till now what would happen is that you have your head office, and then you have your spoke offices, or you have your retail stores which are spread out across the country. And the employee experience that you're able to give is very different, could be different for a person in the head office, and could be different for the person in a spoke office or in the retail store. But interestingly, when you went virtual, it was a complete equality. The employee experience that you were able to impart was sort of equal for any employee, whether they were in the head office or whether they were in a smaller office. So that was another myth that got broken, that engagement requires you to do things in person and be there in person. So I would say that the quality of engagement really went up interestingly in the last 1 year, when we from the time we've been virtual. I think the third thing which really happened interestingly is how people have adopted or adapted to digital ways of learning. So while digital learning has been there for many years, but I still feel that people were still very sort of attuned to being trained in a more physical way, classroom way. But but I've seen that in the last 1 year, the way people have picked up on digital training, digital learning is been has been really amazing. And what it helps us is that we are able to impart that much more to upskill an employee these days, right? It's just at the touch of the button, and it is so much more available and easier to impart. So for me, yes, specifically being in HR, I think these three things were sort of really breaking some myths, where how we work, how we engage with employees, and how we learn. These three things, in my opinion, will have now changed forever for me.
Thank you so much. I think what I really like is what you said at the end, that change forever, because isn't that the hope that these changes, which are clearly for the better, are permanent and not just a trend which stay, which are limited to the time of the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, while I will not say that, yeah, I hope, I mean, I wish that we did not need a pandemic to actually realize all of these things. However, since it happened, and since these are the learnings that we have taken from the space, then why not make the best of it? Take some of these learnings ahead, hope that we can get something out of this, which is better in future as well. I think the way digitization has happened in the last 1 year, I don't think we've ever seen that trend in the past. So let's get the best out of what our experience has been over the last 1 year.
You did mention that the good thing about things going online, and you know, it sort of was an equalizer bringing all the various kinds of employees that Puma has to a single level, right, in terms of engagement. And I know that clearly the space that in which Puma is, apart from the office-going population, you have a huge population of employees who are from the retail side of things, the stores and the various outlets. Um, Give us some of the practices that you were able to implement at this time, which were able to universally engage all these various type of employees. And if there were customizations on individual, say, levels of the category, what were those?
Sure. I think probably to answer that question, I would maybe first talk a little bit about what engagement really stands for, right? Or what it means. I think engagement is such a vast topic, and it is often misunderstood. It takes various shapes in various organizations. For a lot of organizations, it is just collecting feedback from employees. In some organizations, it's about having a fun workplace. In some organizations, it could be something else. But I think what we need to first understand is, what does employee engagement really stand for? And then probably I'll come back to your question of how we make sure that we are engaging different kinds of employees in different cohorts. So coming back to what is engagement, I think engagement probably happens at three different levels or three different kinds, right, for a brand. So the first, and in my opinion, the first and foremost engagement is the employees' engagement with the brand, right? So how do you make sure that employee feels part of the brand? Employee is proud of what the brand is doing. Employee feels that this is like family to me, right? So I really think that that is probably the first level, or the first step towards ensuring that you have a culture of engagement. And how do you make sure, how does a brand make sure that the employee connects with the brand, right? um, the biggest onus of this lies on the leaders, on the leadership team. It's about the leadership team coming together, setting what is the brand vision, what are the brand values, what do we stand for, and then communicating it at various platforms to the employees at large, that okay, this is what the brand stands for, these are our values, and then frequently talking about what the brand has achieved, what is the brand targeting to be, what is the long term strategy, what is the short term strategy. So a lot of this engagement with the brand that we talk about, the employees engagement with the brand, is led by what leaders speak to the employees. So I think that is one of the most critical things. You have to. This is where your leadership has to align with the vision. Your leadership has to align with the importance of communicating that vision, and you have to find platforms to communicate with various levels of employees, various platforms, various cohorts of employees.
Yeah.
And then I think the second level of engagement, in my opinion, is how you're making sure that the functional cohorts or the functional teams are engaging with each other, which is also how the most critical aspect of engagement is how you're engaging with your manager. I mean, we know that most employees, when they leave, they don't leave organizations, they leave managers. So how are you making sure that the second level of engagement, which is the engagement with your manager, engagement with your functional team that you work with, on a daily basis, how do you make sure that you are creating that sort of engagement, which is where I would say a more two-way sort of communication is important. One is you have communicated to the manager what the vision is, how you want to see the culture, and what do you stand for. And at the same time, you're also giving the employees the opportunity to give you feedback, to speak back to the manager and tell him or her what he or she is feeling, right? So this is where the two-way communication becomes really important, and you have to make sure that you are providing your managers with the right tools to communicate, and you're also providing the subordinates, the people, the junior people, the right tools to express what they're feeling. Are you giving them safe learning environment? Are you giving them safe places to give their feedback in, right? So that, in my opinion, would make sure that the second level of engagement, which is the engagement between the employee and the functional team or the manager, is taken care. And then comes the third level of engagement, which probably is what you see as a culture of the organization, the camaraderie between employees, the friendships, the culture, the
Yeah.
parties, and all of the fun stuff, right? So how do you make sure that you create that culture? That happens by making sure that you are creating informal platforms to connect with each other, making sure that employees find a place to express beyond work, right? And that's again something that the leadership team or the HR team has to make sure that you are providing those platforms to people. So these are, in my opinion, three ways or three levels of different kinds of engagement that you can expect in an organization. And when it comes to different groups, you have to see which group requires, what level of engagement, and what should be the way of that engagement, right? So I know my answer was rather long, but I hope it made sense. But now I can probably tell you how we do it for different cohorts.
Absolutely, makes a lot of sense. Do tell us a little bit about how you do it for
Sure,
different
sure.
cohort.
As you mentioned, I mean, we have a huge retail population, right? It's much larger than the employees who work at our offices. It's actually three times more. And in fact, if we also include all our employees who are on external payrolls and who are working in our franchisee stores, it is much higher. So as a brand, you need to make sure that you are engaging with the last employee in the chain, because those are the employees actually who are expressing your brand vision to the customer who's walking into your store. So it's extremely important that they believe in that brand and they believe in your value system. So for us, I think two things which are extremely important for at least the retail population is communication and feedback. I think communication from the leadership team, communication honestly and transparently, communication frequently, communication through various levels of leaders, which means your say head of the organization, your head of retail, your head of the region, and then also the store managers. So what is that level of communication that is happening, and it is drilling down through various levels? Extremely important. What are you communicating? How honestly and transparently are you communicating? Very, very important. And you have to also understand that these are the employees who are working in cohorts of 6 to 8 people across the country. What they get of the brand is what you actually tell them, right? They are not coming to the office. They are not looking at the overall, the fun culture, or the team camaraderie or all of that. It's what you tell them is what they will believe that the brand stands for. So extremely important is how you communicate with them and how you include them in all kinds of communication channels. And the second is, are you giving them tools to express their feedback, or if they have any concerns, woes. So we have made sure that there are safe platforms for them to talk to us. If they have any concerns, there are places where they can confidentially post. They can tell us what are their issues. They can connect back with us, and we make sure then that that's sort of our listening tool to make sure that the brand vision that we set out with, is it actually getting translated in how we are dealing with the employees everywhere. So I really think that for retail, I think two things very, very important are communication and having like the feedback platforms in place to make sure that employees are engaged.
And I think going by whatever you had explained to us earlier, also in terms of the three levels at which we need to take care of creating that culture, I think the word that keeps repeating is communication, right, Manisha? Like even right now, it was about communication. It's just the importance of communication, and two-way communication has become a lot more, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think last 1 year has actually also taught us that, because taught us in a way, because everybody was so virtual, there was nobody coming to offices, and we realized that if you're not coming to office, it's even more important that your leaders are communicating to the teams and to the employees constantly and continuously. Last year when we were under lockdown, we were making sure that we were doing, monthly town halls. We were making sure that we were connecting with people at various levels, doing one-on-one catch-ups, etc., etc. Because I think, yeah, that's probably the key. Communication is the key, and that would, if you communicate, you would also make sure that the people that your employees will communicate back with you, and that would improve your engagement levels.
Absolutely. Uh, and that's where the whole empathy part of it comes in, right?
So yeah, interesting that you speak about the word empathy. I also feel that probably before 2020, I think empathy was this one word in the dictionary which we all spoke about. Probably we did use it in our day-to-day life somewhere. We used it for decision making sometimes, but I think the way the whole last year has been, um, uh, empathy has actually become probably the most important word in the boardrooms. Um, I think the last 1 year has really taught us that what matters at the end of the game is people, how empathetic you are towards towards them, their well-being, their families, and I really think empathy is something that has probably been I think the biggest learning for all of us, not just for HR but for all leaders.
So, since you talked about leaders and HRs, and even previously you talked about sort of HRs and leaders interchangeably, I want to ask you that, when it comes to really making this kind of a culture, being empathetic, how much of building that culture does the onus lie on the leader, like the company head leadership, and how much of it is on the shoulder of the HR team?
um, I think it's a very interesting saying in Puma, especially that that everybody is a salesperson, everybody is a marketing person, and everybody is an HR. And that's probably the only way you can create successful organizations. When While everybody is responsible for their legs of the business, but in terms of understanding the vision of the organization, you have to you have to think like a salesperson sometimes, you have to think like a marketing person sometimes, and you have to think like an HR person sometimes, right? So I don't think you can create any culture without having the buy-in from the entire leadership team. I don't think I can do my job if I don't have my leaders with me. Um, uh, I don't think I can single-handedly engage with the entire employee base or communicate or create that kind of culture that I envision if I don't have the support from other members of the leadership team. So extremely important that the leaders are with you. Extremely important that you align your thoughts with them. In fact, I must tell you that last 1.5 months, when we've sort of been in a lockdown and the situation has been rather not so great with some of our employees, the entire Puma leadership team has not done anything but focused on people. In fact, they have taken up, all of them have taken up various kinds of people projects, whether they were to do with, doctor empanelment, finding out, testing laboratories, or, looking at or calling people on a regular basis to find out their well-being. They have all just done people related work, and I don't think HR alone could have created that sort of a culture. I don't think I alone can do that. You can only do it with when you have the support from your leadership.
Absolutely, very top down indeed, making this kind of change. I would like to remind everyone now that we will be opening the floor to audience questions very soon. Thank you so much. A couple of you have already started giving us your questions, but please do share your questions with us in the comments section, and we will take them up. At this point, I do, because we were talking about engaging employees. I actually want to take up this one question that we received from one of our viewers, which is that, are there any examples of interventions for that you can share for, enhancing employee engagement when they're working virtually?
Sure. So I spoke about providing feedback platforms to people, where you provide tools where people can connect with you confidentially, virtually, and so we in fact have an AI based tool where it reaches out to people at constant intervals, asks them about their well-being, asks them about how they're doing in their jobs, if there are any suggestions that they would like to make, or if they are facing any challenges. So it's something that we have done, and I think it works for us because it allows very active engagement with employees. It also helps us to get. I mean, it has dashboards which tell you how the employee mood is, what are the things that the organization is doing well, what are the things that the organization might not be doing well, etc., etc. So that is one thing that probably has worked really well for us, especially in this virtual world when we are not meeting each other. The other thing, I would probably take you to a very different spectrum where, the fun part of engagement. We realized that, once we became virtual, we also missed out on that, you're just going to the office and you're meeting people and you're having lunch with somebody and you're meeting friends after work, etc., etc. So we decided that we thought that we needed to create a platform where people could connect beyond work, though in a virtual setup. But we felt the need to do that. So we actually created an entire virtual engagement platform, which we started last year in March. It's actually called PUMA Sport Life League. It has four different verticals. It has sports, fitness, lifestyle, community outreach, and each of these have like leaders, and these leaders are responsible for running engagements in the form of competitions, in the form of sometimes bringing in certain speakers to speak, or so it's and because everything was like virtual, it was so easy for people to just engage with it. So that was another thing that we did, that we brought this whole virtual engagement platform, and that's doing really well for us, I think. These are, I think, the two examples that I could think of. And third, again, I'll go back to communication that we have made sure that we are constantly communicating with our employees. Earlier, we would communicate through quarterly town halls, but now that communication has become like monthly. So that's something that we constantly engage with.
I think what really stands out is just there's so much to be done, right? And I think the pandemic, it has really done is show just the amount of work that falls on the shoulders of the HR department, the HR teams, the HR leaders. How do you go about balancing all this work? Because this is a question that we have received from some of our viewers, that as an HR, there's just so much to do. How do I really go about balancing all of it?
Okay. So I don't know whether this question came from an HR professional or not, but uh, I think I one I mentioned that you alone cannot do all the work. You have to involve people in your mission, right? You have to involve your leadership team in this. You have to make sure that the organization vision is aligned to what where you want to take it forward to. Yes, last 1 year has been more people focused than ever before. I mean, not that we were not people focused earlier, but yes, last year definitely I can see that my own team has grown so much in terms of the kind of initiatives, projects that they took. So yes, there has been a lot more to do in the last 1 year, but I won't say that it is i- that it has led to me feeling that I'm not in balance or whatever. I think it's been a great learning journey. It's taught us a lot of new things. We spoke about empathy a little while back. I really think that I can see that my own team is so much more mature and empathetic today than they were before. I think they have grown a lot in the last 1 year. But again, I will come back to my original point where I said that you cannot do it all alone. You have to have your leaders with you, and you have to seek help if you need. It is, I mean, there are times when say the sales team is chasing high targets, or the marketing team is doing brand building through assets and ambassadors, and they need your support. I think this last year and this year is the year when probably the HR teams need that support from the other leaders. And um, I don't think you should shy away from asking for that help.
Thank you so much. I hope that answers the question for those who had asked that. I have a very interesting question here from Halima, which is that what sort of framework is being used to educate employees with regards to their well-being and future opportunities?
All right. So, well-being and future opportunities. I think there would be two different questions or topics. So maybe I could take them separately,
Wonderful. Sure.
and I guess the question is more specific to what we do at Puma, is what I'm imagining. So when it comes to well-being, of course, you have your benefits in place, and you have, the various initiatives that you're taking for people, welfare, everything that I spoke about in terms of, engagement. So you have to lay that down. I mean, we do have a framework around it where we speak about physical well-being, we speak about mental well-being, we speak about financial well-being, and so on and so forth. And there are various buckets to it, and each bucket has things that we put together for an employee. In fact, on the emotional well-being part, we are partnered with Your Dost, and that's where we find that people are where people feel anxious or stressed, they can reach out to Your Dost. So the framework has to be put together in a way that works for your organization. But I think for us, how it works is, like I mentioned, we have the emotional well-being piece, the physical well-being piece, and the financial well-being piece, and we put together things in those buckets. And of course, we communicate those very well to the employees so that they know what we stand for when we talk about well-being. Coming to future opportunities, I think this is, of course, part of I guess, any. I mean, this is part of my job. I mean, this is what I am here for, to make sure that people have those growth opportunities within Puma. So what we actually put together for employees is a few things. One is platforms for them to learn and grow, and there are various platforms which are either cohort based, or they could be individual learning, or they could be functional learning, etc., etc., which helps them to keep themselves upskilled. So that's the learning part of it. And the second is the talent management part of it, where there is a proper framework to identify high potentials, train them, and groom them for bigger positions. Then there's a separate program which is on leadership development, which also helps to identify future leaders. And then finally, I think, which is probably the culmination of all of these things, is your how open the organization is to internal movements and internal promotions, right? Because you're doing all of these things, you're learning, you're growing, you're upskilling yourself, you are taking part in various initiatives, learning initiatives, because you want to reach somewhere. So as an organization, we promote a lot of internal movements and promotions, not just in a particular geography, not just in India, but also globally. So this is something which is very well communicated to people. People know that when they are at Puma, they are here for a long run. They know that if they have an aptitude for a different role, or there is a suitable role somewhere, they would be evaluated. They would be suitably evaluated. So I think these are probably some of the things that you need to put in a framework. What are the learning opportunities that you give? What are the platforms where people can use these opportunities to develop leadership traits? And whether you are open as an organization for these internal movements and promotions. I hope that answered the question.
I'm sure it did. Thank you so much. That was very well rounded in terms of covering everything. Uh, Manisha, is it possible to ever? Is there a way to measure how engaged are your employees with the various kind of interventions? This is a question that we had received from one of our registrants as well.
Sure. So I think there are certain things which could be hard facts, and there would be certain things which are probably the softer aspects of engagement, right? How you feel that employees are engaged. So purely on the facts, I could say that when you have listening tools in place, like I mentioned, the AI based tool that we have, it will throw a score to you. It will tell you that, okay, out of 5, this is the engagement level of your employees, and they base it on certain feedback that they receive from people. They ask people how happy they are, how and they answer certain questions which talk about whether they are getting opportunities to grow, for example, or how is their relationship with their manager, etc., etc. So basis of all of this, they give a score, and we get that score on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So we can actually, yeah, say that, okay, this is the level of engagement of your employees. So that is the score based sort of engagement that you can measure, that you can talk about. But of course, we know numbers are not everything. You have to, at the end of it, feel it, feel it yourself that your employees are engaged or not, right? And I think the indications can come from in various ways. The indications can come in seeing whether people are making friends at workplace, whether people are reaching out to each other in their hours of need. How many people are, for example, reaching out to me personally to speak up about issues? How many people are reaching out to their managers when they have concerns? If you can actually see these softer aspects, I think that would also tell you how engaged you think your organization is. So yeah, I mean, while there are measures in place, but I think what's also important is that you are actively listening to these softer aspects of engagement.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. And we have a question here from Saili, which is that, you mentioned that you've tied up with the others. How have you addressed the employee skepticism towards availing counseling, since there's so much stigma associated with it?
You're absolutely right. I mean, there is definitely stigma attached to it. When we launched this platform about a year back, I think it took that to make that engagement happening. It required constant communication, constant reiteration on how this could be helpful. I think your Dost has been really helpful in this aspect, where they have helped conduct induction trainings. They also constantly have tried to engage with our employees using various interventions. So all that is helping. However, I would say that we are still in a very initial stage of our journey. I would ideally like to see this engagement go up, and there's a constant effort from both our side and your those side to ensure that we are communicating how important this platform is, and how important emotional well-being is, and it's not a stigma. So there's a constant communication, there's a constant sort of reiteration happening. But I would say yes, it does take time. We are only 1 year in this journey, but I would say that we are we believe in it, and I'm sure we will get there. We will get there to a level where we are happy with the engagement.
Yes, we definitely shall. Um, you had earlier mentioned that when you were talking about the various steps at which engagement needs to happen, and when we were talking about empathy as well, there was this mention of that, how leaders need to take uh, feedback as well. It's not just about giving feedback. Uh, I think the traditional model has always been of a command kind of mode where uh, a lot of leaders might not be used to taking feedback. How do they? Is that something that you do, wherein you, as the HR department, conduct these trainings so that they're able to better take this feedback?
I think it's a very relevant question, because while you can create this environment of constant environment of where people are open to giving feedback, but also what's important is how this feedback is taken by the managers, by the leaders, by the organization, right? So you've got to have that appetite to take that feedback as well, good or bad. So very relevant, and I think this is a constant. This is part of our constant conversation during leadership teams, in terms of the culture that we are trying to set, which is open and honest and transparent. And this is a constant conversation that happens at various levels with leaders, with managers, with store managers. That feedback from employees is something that is the most important feedback that you can ever receive. It's like, if you are a customer centric organization, the feedback from customer, how it is taken and how it is acted upon, is how we also take employee feedback. So yes, it could be difficult for some people to take that feedback, but as an organization, as a brand, we've always believed that what employees have to tell us is the most important thing, and you got to have that appetite to listen and to take that feedback. And it's something that we constantly talk to our leaders about.
Thank you so much for that. Uh, this is a question that I just received in a DM from someone, which is that if you were to look at the top three skills that every HR professional should have uh, in the current times, in the future times, what would those be?
I think we've spoken about empathy, so we can probably definitely say that empathy will be one aspect to it. I think the second thing, which sometimes, as being in HR, or so-called support function, you lose out on, is the business orientation. I think it's extremely important for an HR person to be business oriented, to work with to be able to work with different leaders. In fact, HR has to be much more business oriented than any other person in the organization, because he or she has to work with various channels, various kinds of businesses, various kinds of leaders, and be able to understand what the company is trying to do and what the company vision mission is. So I would say business orientation is one of the most important things. And why I say it, because a lot of times we being in HR, we lose out, or we don't think too much about it. That's why I would want to put it in the top three buckets. And I think the other thing probably would be coaching and mentoring. I mean, as being in HR, I think it's our everyday job to talk to people. It's our everyday job to understand what people are going through, and it's an extremely important skill to be able to coach, to be able to mentor people. So I would say that coaching and mentoring is something that, if you are in HR, you should probably think of that as one of the skill sets.
One of the questions that I just received is more from again from an HR professional's perspective, that sometimes you might be working under a leadership which is more on the conservative side in terms of uh, accepting these new ideas. new ideas, I would say, in quotes, like empathy and employee wellness, employee experience. How can you go about really convincing them that this is really important and we need to implement this at our organization?
Um, Firstly, I think I spoke about when I spoke about business orientation is exactly how being business oriented will help you actually achieve this, right?
Mhm.
Because no leadership team will actually listen to something which they believe is just HR jargon. They'll only buy into it if they believe that it's something that is going to help their business. And you have to be able to convince them that the people agenda is going to help their business, right? That's the only way it will go forward. So extremely important to know what business your organization is in. Extremely important to know how impactful people are in those businesses, and then build your case and speak to your leaders. So understand your business, make your case, make your people case, present it to the leadership team. Don't present your case without understanding the business, or without putting the business aspect to what you want to do. Because yes, at the end of it, the organizations are there to be in businesses. They are there to grow. They are there to be profitable. What they need to realize is how people are a very important part of this growth journey and this journey of profitability. And it is the HR person's job to make that case and bring it to the leadership team.
Thank you so much, Manisha. I have my last question now for you, which is that can uh, a company uh, be empathetic and profitable, high performing?
Yeah, I think I answered this question in the previous question.
Yeah, sort
Um,
of. Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, I would emphatically say yes, because that's the only way to be, right. You could be a successful organization in a short run without having people with you, but you cannot be successful year on year if you don't have the people agenda in place. Because at the end of it, it's people who are going to take you from one point, from say an x to x by 100 x to the power of 100, nothing else. So people and growth and profitability have to go hand in hand. I mean, it can work maybe in short term, but definitely if you are in the long run in a particular business, you have to have the people agenda in place. Otherwise, you are not an organization which can survive in the long run. Because what's going to happen is, if you don't have the people agenda in place, you're going to have huge amounts of attrition, which is going to be again very very inefficient on costs. You have to spend money on hiring, again very cost inefficient. You have to spend money on retraining and relearn, having people relearn things. You will not have people who have the entire history of how you started and how you grew the organization. And again, it's going to be hugely challenging for the businesses to survive. To have So these are just some of the examples that I can give on how people, having a stable, happy people working with you will lead to better profitability and growth. And there are many more things. But yes, I mean, if you have to just ask me, and if I have to answer in one word, I would say yes. People agenda and growth and profitability go always together.
Thank you so much. And I hope that convinces any skeptics that might be out there. Empathy here to stay and definitely does promote a high performing work culture. Manisha, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for sharing all your massive experience, all your wisdom with us today. We learned a lot, truly. And we really, really hope that you and your family continue to be safe and well. And thank you again for everything.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this session, and I wish you the same, Suyush. I hope that you all stay safe, you, your families, and your organization. And I wish all the listeners as well a safe times ahead.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much. And just to now remind everyone that uh, you can always come to us if we can help you in any way. Please just visit us at bit.ly/ydcorporates. And we will be back here again next week. Next week's session is going to be from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. And our speaker will be Mr. Paul Dupuy, MD and CEO of Randstad India. Please make sure that you do join us, and please stay safe, please stay well. Thank you again, and have a good night. Bye-bye.